Hello, hello, and welcome to week 3. We are here, you guys. You're halfway done. If you have made it this far, you are rocking it. So what I will tell you is that if you are watching this and you haven't done a whole lot of anything, jump on board. I'm gonna tell you that every week because no matter where you start, it's gonna do amazing things for you. So again, want to remind you, send me a screenshot of this so we see how you're doing. I've only skipped one day of each week because, it happens sometimes. I don't remember why I missed it this week though, but it was not an intentional missing. So, all right. So let's dive in let's think about what the last week has been like, right? So we've done this for 2 weeks now, and it's your body's taking time to process this. I was actually taking a training and I was talking about trapped emotions, and what I learned was it takes 1 to 2 days when you release a trapped emotion with the muscle testing and the magnets and all that. It takes like 2 days for your body to process and totally release it. So we're doing it a little bit slower with the script and the oils, but we're still doing it, right? And it does take your body a little bit of time to process everything that it's doing though. So realize that and understand that. We can feel it right away. It just takes a little bit of time, So I do want you to think about, how do you feel right now? How did this last week feel? Were there more emotions? Was it just like this relief of just let it all go? I've heard numerous responses from people, whether it's like your anxiety is higher or a lot of just introspection, which I love, but really truly thinking through, how did I feel? Which for some of us is really, really hard, but it's really, really good. So do you feel like you need to keep doing shame, or whichever one you chose for the last week, and even the week before with anger and any one of those ones? Do you feel like you need to keep doing any of those? Because you can just pay attention to that. As you've already figured out, since you've been doing this for 2 weeks, it doesn't take a lot of time every day, literally like less than a minute. And if you're doing multiple, 2 to 3 minutes, right? It's not a lot of time. So the other thing I want to ask though is, do you feel a shift in your energy? Do you feel more energetic as well? Do you feel since our energy and the emotions we release are vibrations, do you feel your vibrations towards other people being stronger? Do you see people having a happier mood being around you, or a calmer? Maybe it's calm, maybe you need that. Just curious. I love hearing your guys' responses. So just remember, your cells are changing as you do this, whether it's with the oils or not with the oils. You're only doing the script any which way. You are making a difference because you are choosing to change your emotional health and pay attention and learn and grow, okay? Which means you're also creating new habits and you're changing generations, which is radical. So this week we're going to talk about fear, okay? Fear, I looked it up because the definition is a great place to start, is the unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous. I'm literally going to read that again. And I didn't even finish it. Likely to cause pain or threat. Okay, so fear is the unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. When I first read that, I was like, I've never really thought about that. A lot of these emotions, I don't really think about the definition. It's just like the feeling or the overall, like, I get it. But I was like, whoa. And that's exactly, as an Enneagram 7, what 7s are running from. We don't want the pain. We don't want to feel threatened. We just want life to be happy, right? So I was going to share this story later, but as I was like writing out everything to tell you guys, all my examples kept coming back to this story. So I'm going to share it now so that I can give you the examples as we go. So our responses deeply affect us spiritually as well. Okay. So again, as an Enneagram 7, fear is I'm in the head triad. So it's the core emotion for the head triad. And normally I wouldn't say that I do fear. Like fear, I'm not really afraid of a lot, right? I've jumped out of airplanes. I've gone to Holland when I was 16. I've been to Africa multiple times. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa with just another female friend. Like there's not a whole lot. And maybe it's because I'm 6'2" and I have a presence about me, but there's just not a whole lot that I'm scared of. And so to me, when I hear fear, it doesn't really resonate. But as I'm starting to pay attention and work on this whole understanding your emotions bit, I've realized that in the past month, I have just had a little bit more fear towards things. And maybe I've always had it, I've just never identified it as that. So as I've been looking at this, realizing as a 7, just not always anticipating the future, but actually sitting in it, I realize sometimes I'm fearful of speaking out about the things I truly believe in. And my coach actually called me out on that and has been encouraging me in it. And I think that's part of why it's coming up and bubbling as well. But what it looks like is part of it is the fear of sharing my faith. The other part of, so within that, will the people, the other part is within the people of my faith community, will they understand what I'm doing with this whole releasing emotions things? And so it's kind of held me back a little bit because I've been fearful of people's responses, right? I'm not afraid of what I believe. I'm not afraid of releasing emotions of what I'm doing. I'm afraid of people's responses. And so for the people within my faith community, it's things like, well, they think I'm weird. Is it unbiblical? And just so you know, I've prayed and prayed and prayed over it. And I'm deeply rooted in my faith and totally feel grounded that what I am doing is spot on. Not worried about that. So then the opposite side is for sharing my faith and all of that. And it's not even so much sharing my faith as just being open and honest about my faith, right? Like that's truly where the fear is sitting. And it just, I think it's funny because I'm even like stumbling over my words here, because the thing is I don't want to push people away. Like that is not my goal. My goal is to be open and honest and loving. Like that's what I want, right? I just want to love people well with the gift that God has given me and share on all parts, right? Share what I do, share his love for me. It's just sharing all of those things. And so what I've settled in my soul is that realizing that it's all also fear is tied to shame, which is what we went over last week, right? And for the people in my faith community, knowing I'm not ashamed of what I do in this emotional healing, because that is a part of being healed. Like there's physical healing, like in my faith community, we have no problems going to the doctors or anything like that. And so that's all a part of it, right? And then on the opposite side is not being ashamed to share the radical peace and love I feel with my relationship with God. And so God brought me to this work to love on you, right? That's what he gave me this work for, is that I can love more people and show more people, A, his love, and B, this radical thing that I've discovered that just makes a huge, huge difference. So he's really given me a gift. And for me to silence my message, I am doing a disservice to anyone I come into contact to. I'm doing a disservice to the people in my faith community. I'm doing a disservice to anyone else that I talk to. And so that is because of fear. And so if I allow fear to stop me, I'm not doing my job, right? And so as I personally kind of grappled through that and realized I'm not going to push anything on anyone, but this is what I do. And I love it. And I love being able to love on you. And I love being able to share. As far as I know, I'm not pushing anything on anyone. And I'm just loving on people, but you can give me feedback to tell me if that's incorrect and if you feel like I'm pushing anything. But I do think that the definition of fear that I defined earlier, being an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something's dangerous, likely to cause pain or threat, that's exactly what I've done in the example I gave. I allowed my fear. I'm afraid of the pain that's going to be caused in me by others responding to me if I'm either talking too much about God or if the people in my faith community don't quite understand what I'm doing. It's their judgments on me, right? Which, why am I taking that on? I shouldn't be judging other people, and I shouldn't allow their judgment to be coming on me. So that is what I've been able to release, is just realizing that people can ask questions and I can explain more. So, and when they do that, I realize that my fear or my worry, which I'll talk about a little bit, is really my lack of being able to describe something well, because if I have a way to describe it, there's no longer the fear held in that. So that's what taking away and dismantling fear is understanding, what am I actually afraid of and how do I take this. One description I think of is a friend of mine. She is an Enneagram 6, and her mom and her sister are a 7 and a 1. And they're like, "Whoa, let's go have fun at our local Puyallup Fair. Let's go have fun at the fair." So my friend is a 6, that was like, "I have 3 kids. How am I going to keep them all safe?" And so she basically, once she figures out the plan and of a way to keep them safe, she feels better and calmer. But if she can't figure out the plan, it's just too much, and her fear takes over. So there is a part to understanding, but there's also that faith part. There we go, back to faith, of just letting go, because sometimes our fears are irrational. That was not in my script, but there you go. So that was a whole lot of vulnerability of what I am learning right now. And I do want to talk more about worry and stress and anxiety and how that ties into fear. So for me, worry is what I was doing about each of my relationships, right? And both for work and my faith community. So that then leads to fear, but ultimately the emotion of worry is where it started. So then stress and anxiety, I'm gonna have to be real here. Those two kind of go hand in hand for me. They're very intermixed, but I think stress may be more our initial response to something, and then the anxiety wells up. To me, anxiety almost seems more like an emotion and stress is a response, even though I know stress is a very real emotion. And I would even say as a 7, and maybe it's a pride thing, but to me, I don't think I've ever felt anxiety. Mentally, that's what my brain tells me. But when I've done my Zytoscan and things like that, or even muscle tested to release emotions, I've had to release anxiety. So I know my body's felt it, but for me, I say I get stressed about things, not I'm anxious about things. And that's probably me putting like a pretty label on it, because it's more acceptable in my mind to be stressed than it is to be anxious. Okay. I think, there was another emotion I did that too, to where I put like a pretty label on it versus, it was frustrated, saying I get frustrated about things versus I'm angry about these things, because frustration seems prettier than anger, right? So there's some more vulnerability for you. So let's talk about the oils for each emotion. Fear is sandalwood. I have this right here. We're going to go over that in just a little bit. Worry is abundance. Stressed is the emotion or the oil of clarity, and anxious is joy. So I love this because it actually gives me a deeper understanding of the definition. And if we want abundance instead of worry, that would mean to me that we need the abundance of relationships rather than worrying about them, right? And instead of feeling stress, we need the clarity that comes with it about whether it's about what we do or how it'll all work out. That's what we need the clarity for. And then anxiety, we need to feel joy instead of feeling like we're completely out of control and cannot control anything, right? So how do these emotions affect ourselves and our relationships? When I think about worry, again, I was worrying about what my friends would say, my perceptions on the conversations that I then had with them after this. It actually, like, I put up a little bit of a wall because I was worried about their judgments, right? So that affects our relationships. If I was stressed about whether or not I was talking about God too much in my classes or my Facebook Lives or anything like that, that would actually change my heart of my message of what I'm trying to love on people well with, right? So I kind of would put a little shutter up and kind of filter what I said, which is not my true heart and my true message, right? So, yeah. And then when we're anxious about things, we are not always calm and present with the people that we're with, because we're so wrapped up with the negative of what's happening in our head and our heart that we're not able to just be present and be there. And what it also boils down to is the negative emotion we're feeling. It's just this like overflow that like gives in and boils over to the other people. They literally feel our negative vibrations and our negative energy going out. So when we release it and let it all go, friend, we literally have the opportunity to bring joy and peace and clarity and calm to anyone we come into contact with as we release these things, because that's what we want, right? We don't want to feel anxious or fearful or any of those things, the worry or the stress. Ooh, no one wants that. So we know how to release these with oils and scripts. So how do we change our internal script, right? Even we are releasing this, but we also want to learn how do we do that. So we're going back a little bit more of the personality, because yay, Enneagram, I just love it. And fear. So fear is a part of the head triad. The head triad is 5, 6, and 7. Okay, that's a part of what I am. So the 5s, they battle fear by gaining knowledge. They are just the bookworms. They want to know all the things. It's so stressful to them if they're in a conversation and they don't know anything about it. They're probably leaving the conversation, going over and Googling everything they can just so that they can learn about it. The 6s align themselves or challenge authority in order to overcome the fear. So if they are fearful about something, they're either going to follow authority and align themselves and kind of feel safe underneath the authority, or they're going to challenge the authority, and that really allows them to feel like they are doing something about their fear, right? And then 7s, we anticipate a better future and ignore our fear, or put it aside, put it away, because that is pain and that's hard and we don't want to do it. So those are the triads we talked about the first week. And then the second week, we talked about stances. So something that I didn't note last week, but I wanted to bring up this week, was that there's a number in each of the triads. I'm going to grab the book. So when you look at this, it has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And you can see all these like triangles and stuff. So this triad right here, the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s, the center of that triad is going to be the triad that they don't actually do what their intelligence center is. Okay. So the 3s are the ones that they, out of all of these, they have the hardest time feeling. Okay. 5, 6, and 7, 6s, they have the hardest time thinking through things. And then the 8s, 9s, and the 1s, the 9s, they have the hardest time doing and taking action. Okay. So I just wanted to explain that really quick. So as I dive in, these, I'm going to go number by number and just explain a little bit of each one of them. Okay. So the 1s, their compulsion of what they do moves against other people on the surface, but they're always going away from others underneath. Okay. So it's kind of like both. So outwardly, they may seem efficient and engaging, but underneath, they're always thinking about an ideal world where they're trying to create in the long term. Okay. They tend to underuse their thinking center. So 1s need to think more. Okay. It is really funny because if you know any Enneagram 1s, they can be brilliant creators. But the thing is, they're always doing. They're like going. And then they'll feel after that. But then lastly, again, they'll think. So I found that the ones in my life often will tell me, and this is actually a quote from a friend, I know I have emotions and that I should probably process them, but I have so much to do. And when I'm done with that, I will then process or think about it later. And I was like, yep, that's typical of an Enneagram 1. So 1s, you need to sit and think about why you feel the way you do. Okay. It's not wasting time. I promise. And that's important. For those of us that aren't 1s, that's a really important thing for them to hear, is that it's not wasting time. So a 2's compulsion moves them towards others on the surface, but against them underneath. They're really warm and helpful and seductive on the outside while harboring a hidden agenda or a really strong will on the inside. Okay. They claim to be helping others while denying that the aggressive motives are underneath. Also, they underuse their thinking center. So they feel everything first, all warm and cozy. And then, actually not all warm and cozy. It can even be like you could do something without even meaning to hurt them, and their hurt is so deep. And then they do something, so constantly moving, but then they think last. So when you understand why you're feeling your emotions and you think through them, right? Understanding is through thinking, not feeling. You then work on bringing up that stance. So when you think about it, about why you feel, that's the way that 2s bring up their stance. So the 3s, their surface compulsion moves against people while the underlying compulsion moves toward people. That's all really deep. I'm saying it, may not fully understand it, but 3s seem pushy and competitive while underneath they want the approval of others. They claim to be bold leaders while denying the deeper compulsion to follow the leadership of others. Okay. They underuse their feeling center. So often that's at the expense of succeeding. So for them to sit and feel why they're feeling the anger, the shame, or the fear, it's a huge way that they can understand and change. They really just want to go do something about it, think about it. They don't really want to feel it, even though, again, that is their the core of their triad. So fours, they are both surface and deep compulsions to both move away from others. So this actually makes fours the most introspective and individualist. So they're free from real world constraints, but also can be self-absorbed and alienated. So fours underuse their doing center. So they're going to feel it all and they're going to think about it, but they're not necessarily going to take action. So what they need to do is literally take action on their fear, right? That's what they need to do. They have thought about it, they have felt it, but they need to go do something about it now. Fives move away from others on the surface, but against them underneath, where they're not all as detached as they seem. Fives can seem very detached at times. Their strong will leads them to want to be in control, okay? Fives take ownership of the mental sphere, so they're always thinking, and then they feel, and then lastly, they do something about it. Okay, a five wants to gather all the information as to what's going on. So for a five, what can you do to take action and do something about your fear? Same as the fours and fives need to do something. They need to take action. So the six, remember, this is the Enneagram number that goes against their triad. So they're the thinking triad. There's both surface and deep compulsions both move towards others, making six dependent on the stability of external support. So they want to trust the world, and sixes find the world treacherous, and so they develop defense techniques, right, such as skeptical thinking, seeking safety in groups, etc., against their own trusting nature. Sixes have a really hard time trusting themselves. So while a six is in the thinking triad, they tend to use it last. So they feel all the fear, and then they do something about it, but they forget to actually think through the logic of what they're afraid of, okay? So as a six, what do you need to actually think through today versus taking action and feeling all about? Sevens embrace the world on the surface, but move away from it underneath. So while the seven seems focused on enjoying the real world, their mind is actually attending to a fantasy of how things could be even better, okay? Sevens think through everything first, and then they do something about it, oftentimes forgetting to allow their feelings in their heart to be a part of it. So as a seven, your goal is to access your feelings about it and sit in it. I promise it will not overtake you, having done this. So eights move against others in their surface and their deep compulsions, making them the most aggressive type. Their willpower, self-reliance, and possessive tendencies are evident to others. Their world of influence tends to be physical and worldly. Their doubly aggressive compulsions enable them to rise above obstacles and acquire a heroic stature. The eight is all about taking action, and then they think about what they did. And lastly, if they feel about it, that's when it would happen. So eights, you also need to sit in, access, and understand your feelings. It will not overtake you, and the vulnerability, because that is the hardest thing for eights, will actually make you stronger. Lastly, we have nines on the top of the triad, and that is the nines also, their gut triad, right? Or the doing triad. They move away from others on the surface, but toward others underneath. So they're caught in the conflict of wanting to detach from others while wanting to identify with them in the long term. They withdraw in a non-threatening way to allow themselves to reconnect later. The nines, again, are the ones in their triad that they do not use their intelligence center. So they can think and feel, but they oftentimes have a hard time doing something about it. So nines, you need to go and take action, okay? All right, so where is fear tied to our physical health, okay? We put sandalwood on our third eye, okay? These are the chakras, and there's all of that, and whether or not that is something you believe, basically where this is in the middle of your forehead allows for a couple things, okay? This is right here specifically on our forehead in our body, our physical body, and what that does is it's often tied to the imbalanced symptoms of moodiness, being volatile, exaggerated imagination, hearing loss, sinus infections, and hormone functions. It's amazing how our body is all connected. So you can imagine if fear is super prevalent, all of those physical things could rise to the surface. So let's release them, right? And I'll say it every week, but from my research, our beliefs in the heart is where our thoughts stem from. So we can release our emotions, but if we don't change what we truly believe inside and we don't change our thinking, then we're going to keep having the same thoughts and we're going to keep having the same emotions and nothing's truly going to change. So that's why we learn about the Enneagram, to understand who we are so that we can change and do different. And that is why we are changing our subconscious, both with the oils, and if you're not doing that, definitely with the script. So the phrase from the oils this week is, I face the unknown. And I think that is brilliant for all of us. So again, really quick before I do the script, the oils this week for fear, sandalwood. Worry, it's abundance. Stressed is clarity. And anxious is joy. So you ready for the script? All right. Fearful. I'm going to put on sandalwood while I do this. So, in the name of Jesus Christ, spirit, superconscious, subconscious, conscious, higher self, heart, mind, will, nervous system, brain, original intelligence, RNA, DNA, and every genetic anomaly out of alignment with my pattern of perfection, please locate the origin of my conscious and subconscious destructive cellular memories, which cause the incorrect perceptions that create the feelings, thoughts, and beliefs of fear. Take each and every level, layer, area, and aspect of my being to these origins, analyze them, and resolve them perfectly with God's truth. Come forward through all generations of time and eternity, healing every event and its appendage based on the origins. Please do it according to God's will until I'm at the present, filled with light and truth, God's eminence, peace and love, benevolence, forgiveness of myself for my imperfect perceptions, having compassion for every single person, place, circumstance, or event which contributed to any of these destructive cellular memories, feelings, thoughts, or beliefs. With total forgiveness and unconditional love, I ask that my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual memory of perfection resonate throughout my being. I choose being brave. I feel brave. I am brave. It's done. It's healed. It's accomplished now. Thank you all for coming to my aid and working together to help me rid my being of stress and attain the full measure of my creation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Now, all facets of my being, please put this scripting on automatic so that it repeats itself throughout each and every cell and fiber of my being every half hour of every day for the next 180 days, thereby restoring perfectly healthy frequencies throughout my being and returning me to my original purpose, power, and magnificence. And it is done. All right. Next up, where and how and all that with the oil. So the first thing we do with the oils is sit and we feel fear. Okay. So I'm just going to sit for a minute. When I feel fear, I literally feel myself shrinking in me, and I almost get a little bit of a headache, all the thoughts, and I just see a parade of people who truly it's just their judgments, and just feel that just in my gut, the yuck feeling. That's literally what I feel. So then you're going to smell. I'm going to put this on my finger, and even if you don't have the oil, you can still sit and feel the emotion and then feel the opposite and press the places. So then feeling the other side of fear, which is awareness, right? I am aware that I'm feeling their judgments and that's not necessarily truth, right? I choose being reassured, trusting, confident, resolute, or brave, or all of them, right? So then you're going to apply it to your third eye and just kind of press it. So if you don't have the oil, you can kind of just press in like an acupressure point. I kind of rub it all over. So I don't just have oil in the middle of my forehead. And then we're going to touch our emotional points right there. And as we touch these, I like to say the statement. And so our statement is, I face the unknown. Okay. So there you go, friend. We have walked through everything. You know what to do. So be encouraged this week as we walk through fear of what needs to be released, how you feel about it. Grab your script and your tracker. And if you have the oil and your placement card, grab all of those things and release. Choose whichever one, whether it's fear or worry or stressed or anxious, whichever one you want to release. And then you guys are week 3. You guys are doing it. So, so proud of you. And keep changing your emotional health for all the generations to come.